This imbalance between job demands and job resources leads to stress and exhaustion and creates damages to physical and mental health of the worker and encourages him or her to make more active use of the available resources.
Sometimes people just start to deny their needs, the need for sleep, the need for social hangouts.
If you have in your life just work and sleep, so you are having a ticking bomb that something will explode.
Welcome to the Volunteer Support Podcast, brought to you by the European Union's co-funded project Promptus.edu, a collaboration between associations Audis Out Mori and Building Bridges.
Welcome to Volunteer Support Podcast, where we address common volunteer questions and concerns for both volunteers and sending-receiving organizations. Today our topic is burnout, and to dive deeper into this topic we invited a very special guest, Egle. Hi Egle.
Hi.
Egle is studying psychology and also wrote her bachelor thesis about burnout, so we are very interested to hear more about it. Today with you is Audis Out Mori team, me, Gabriele, and Tadas.
Hello.
Let's start with why we are talking about burnout. Why do we think it's important to bring this topic into this podcast?
Okay, so the topic of burnout, I believe, is quite common, and more and more people are realizing that they are feeling burnout. Before, maybe they didn't know about what is burnout, and in the workplace you can have it. You can have colleagues that experience this, but when we are talking about volunteers, it also can be present if you are for half of the year or a year volunteering with a contract in some organization. Then there can be some problems. So to be able to understand if you having a burnout can help to not have later stages of burnout to prevent it. So that's important.
While I was doing my research, I discovered that according to statistics, nearly 70% of workers worldwide are at risk of work-related stress and burnout. And I think due to its high prevalence, burnout is considered to be a major challenge in organizational health prevention, about which not enough is known.
And I think why it's also important to talk about it, because if we are not recognizing it, some consequences could be quite harsh, starting from maybe just not feeling happy and start to consume more alcohol. Maybe it can lead into overall health issues. So you start to get some illnesses, maybe develop depression as well, or make a tragic scenario. Maybe you can lose the willingness to live. Therefore, I think it's important to talk about it and recognize it. So here we are talking about it. So let's start from the beginning and conceptualize what is burnout.
While I was doing my research, I discovered that attempts to define occupational burnout began over 15 years ago, and at least 13 different definitions of burnouts have been published in that time. And the term burnout was developed by psychologist Herbert Frauenberger in 1974, who defined it as a state of mental and physical exhaustion caused by working life. But more recently, Maslock and Jackson in 1986 defined burnout as a response to persistent and emotional stress characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced personal satisfaction. To specify, emotional exhaustion can be a feeling of draining of emotional resources resulting in inability to psychologically give anything to others, while depersonalization or cynicism can be employees' irritability, loss of idealism, an indifferent and cold attitude towards work, co-workers or clients, and dismissive behavior at work. And last one, personal dissatisfaction can mean negative evaluation of one's own personal competence and performance, often accompanied by a feeling of failure.
Okay, that's a very broad and interesting concept. I think sometimes it can be hard to find the difference between feeling burnout and feeling tired or stressed? And where do we know that it's, I'm burning out, or I'm just tired, or I'm just stressed?
I think the answer is time. How much time does it take to recover? For example, if I take 2-week vacation and after that, if I feel relaxed, I feel rested, then it was not burnout. It was only tiredness. And when it comes to burnout, you need more time to recover. It takes a lot of aspects of your life. For example, your family, your friends, your hobbies, your whole spectrum of interests, while tiredness is just only an aspect of physically being tired, and it takes much less time to recover.
How do we recognize that we might be burnout?
From my experience, I have experienced migraine, a lot of physical signs that my body is tired. I've experienced a lot of stress. I experienced sleep deprivation, anxiety, or higher levels of depression. I think that was the major keys that made me realize that something is not right. Of course, besides of that, I had a lack of interest in working. I didn't want to work, and something was not right. Yeah.
Okay. So I can share my experience, what I felt. So quite interestingly, in the beginning, I was feeling a lot of energy. I was able to do a lot of activities, and a lot of people was amazed about that. How do you find time and so on? I was able to even sleep not that much. It could be that I was tired in the evening, then I was going to emergency room for a shift, sleeping maximum 2 hours. In the morning I was having a lot of energy. I was excited about different activities. And based on the lecture of burnout that I attended, like this was the first stage, because I had a lot of energy, I was working a lot. And after that, it took, I would say, a year or so. There was more and more work, and then later on I didn't want to do any of that. Even before, probably there was a bit, but not that much, and then everything is quite good and I can manage to do all of that. I am happy with it, but later on it's just too much, and then you don't want to do anything and you just want to rest to save energy. Yeah, so that's how I felt it.
Not sure if my experiences would be considered burnout, but when I was in Erasmus Youth Exchange for 2 months, so it's not a very long time, but I feel like that's the reason why we can talk about even in volunteering experiences, because in these 2 months I was very stressed about producing the results that we were hoping. And I was thinking about them all the time. So because I was in another country alone, so therefore I do not have responsibilities to meet with my friends, to hang out with them, and I can focus only for my work. And I spend there from early morning till late night, and even at night I would dream about how would I fix the things that didn't go good. So 24/7 my mind is on experiments and what can I improve? How can I do things differently to make the results better? So I think if I would continue it even more, I would have gone to burnout, because I can recognize it like an early stage for that.
You were working in the lab from 8 in the morning till 8 or even
till
later?
Till 2 a.m. sometimes. And when the metro is not going to my home and I walk alone at night. But I was motivated and
you were forgetting to eat even.
Yeah, but that's normal for me.
Your experience reminds me of my experience when I had my first job ever in job market. I was a beginner search engine optimization specialist, which was like a huge deal for me. And I wanted to impress my new boss that I can do better. And when usually my colleagues started work from 9 o'clock, I was already there by 7. And I was the last one to leave the office as well, which was like 9 p.m. So I worked from 12 to 14 hours every day, even Saturday or Sunday. Of course, I reached a lot of results back then, but as well, I burned out. Losing your boundaries between job and your life is a very important sign of possible burnout. You have to make sure that you don't lose it.
This reminds me a saying of psychiatrist, psychologist Laurinaitis, who is saying that you have to spend 24 hours like that 8 hours should be for sleep, 8 hours for work, and 8 hours for free time. And that should not be with a work-related thing. And if you have in your life just work and sleep, so you are having a ticking bomb that something will explode.
And the moment I realized that I have a ticking bomb was when I visited my friend and she asked me, Agla, what do you do in your free time? I said, free time? What? I mean, work. What else? And then I realized, wow, I don't have a free time. I don't know what's my hobby, really. And that really shocked me. That was my first time when I realized that something was not right.
But what's strange that the employers may think that, oh, you're a wonderful worker, you're working a lot, everything is wonderful, but there is a risk because you have a worker who unable to rest enough, so the quality of the work probably is also lower if you are not rested.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's...
My employer was very delighted with my work ethic, my results. My colleagues were impressed of how fast I reached my goals. And I was also satisfied with my success.
So we can name first stages and then later stages. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about stages of burnout, because it's not I'm going to work happy and then next day I'm overworked and I'm burnout, I don't want to do anything anymore.
I would like to share with you 4 stages of burnout. So the first one in this classification would be the rise. So you have addiction to work. Everything works out, you think about work all the time, you have a lot of energy, there are symptoms of workaholism. This does not necessarily lead to burnout, but there is a high risk with this one. However, if work takes up most of the time at the expense of other areas, your free time, then this is already the stage of burnout. Then the second stage is fatigue, chronic stress. You feel irritability, increased sensitivity to sounds, cravings for salty, fatty, sweet food, alcohol, smoking. You may have insomnia, burning in the head sensation, acne on the back, symptoms of gastritis, ulcers. Often you may have more often respiratory infections, hair loss, and fear of the future. Then the third stage is reversible exhaustion. Those people that are prone to depression will develop depression. Those that are prone to psychosomatic illness will develop physical sensations that are still reversible. So arms and legs can be numb. You may have trauma with unknown cause of it, which does not respond to the traditional treatment methods and may not disappear for a long time. You may have deterioration of vision, blindness, memory loss, deterioration of concentration. So the performance indicators are falling a lot and you become ineffective. So in this stage, you might become blind and it can last for a month. And then after you can't work, you are rested and you have your eyesight back. And then the fourth stage is irreversible exhaustion. So it's about professional deformation, sense of meaningless of work or activity like volunteering activity that you are doing. It's about hatred for work, for employees, customers, or other people in the workplace. You feel out of touch, you are not feeling connected to anything. You may have alcoholism, deterioration in all areas of your life, a relationship with friends and family is collapsing. You don't have those relations. So that's the fourth stage.
When I listen to this, it sounds like things just happens to you, but there are things that you do to increase the chances to go from one stage into another. For instance, that you are start to feel exhausted. So it's not out of nowhere. It's because you spend a lot of time and maybe you are start to change your values and make time to work, not making time for the family and so on, and these boundaries are blurring out.
I can give you one example of what happened to me. I remember it was Monday evening and I was about to finish my work and then go to the gym. And I realized maybe if I finish my project, tomorrow at work will be easier to work. And then I chose to finish my project and not to go to gym. And it was my first sign of how I got tempted to burnout.
When did you finish your work?
I finished 3 hours later. And I only thought, oh, just a couple minutes more.
It sounds like an addiction.
It is still. I don't think I get rid of that. It's always with me, that temptation to work more. I think if you experience burnout in one job, you have a probability to experience it once again if you don't work it yourself, if you don't recognize it, if you don't deal with it.
Some inner work is needed.
Sure.
Because it's already beaten pathway. So if you are not aware or not reflecting, you might redo it again. And I read that sometimes just people just start to deny their needs. The need for sleep, the need for social hangouts, and as you said, maybe gym, just to exercise your body. And then, so therefore, how it's slowly happening, so therefore that you dissociate from yourself, and this numbness inside, it creates some kind of wanting to feel something, and maybe that's where start alcoholism and so on, just to avoid the situation altogether.
Of course, when diving into deeper, it's important to ask ourselves why work is my priority, why I want to put so much effort there. Do I want to impress somebody? Do I lack of self-esteem? Maybe. So without this inner work, you cannot solve why you are burned out, and you can repeat this mistake many more times, unfortunately.
There can be something from the childhood that you want to prove yourself for the parents, and then you're proving yourself to the employees.
It might be different causes, but the childhood sometimes, lots of time actually, is related to the problems that we're having as adults. Maybe you were recognized and praised only when you did something resultful. Maybe you won something, and maybe you got a very good grade, and only then you get this attention and love from the parent. And it's normal that you internalize it and take it as, okay, I'm valuable, I'm nice, and nice to be around when I do something valuable, let's say, get a good grade, win a championship, or this kind of.
Yeah, so the reason why I burned out is I got addicted to my boss evaluation. I wanted to get that as much as I can. Of course, as well, I didn't know how to say no as well. So boundaries was not an option for me.
So you didn't have the skill of setting boundaries before?
No.
That's very interesting. I found that the absence of rewards and recognition sometimes lead to burnout, because when you're doing a lot and no one is seeing and you are not measuring the steps that you took, sometimes it can lead to burnout. But you very nicely shared that also prizes might also get addicted, because you get this dopamine from the praises that, yeah, you're a good worker, maybe you're the best, and it could be also addictive. That's very interesting. Also, I read that dysfunctional work environment also very adds up to the burnout. It can be either everyone is focused and also in some kind of stages of burnout, and the whole atmosphere is very competitive and result-oriented, or maybe there can be just bullies. It can be a bully boss that wants you to be as productive as possible. It's extracting every last bit of you, and in the way that it's maybe not sustainable for a long period of time.
So according to my research that I have done recently, according to a theory of conservation of resources, burnout is caused by a combination of high work demands and low work resources. Job demands are negative aspects of work that requires effort on the part of the worker and have various psychological effects. For example, job demands may include heavy workloads, unclear work procedures, lack of time for tasks, pressure at work, monotony at work, perceived control, interpersonal conflicts, role ambiguity, perceived job insecurity, work-family conflict, poor promotion opportunities, and etc. And when it comes to job resources, they are defined as a positive organizational aspects that motivate employees to perform better, promote personal growth, and encourage them to achieve organizational goals. For example, job resources may include exceptional working conditions, supervisor support, positive feedback, perceived job security, task significance, skills variety, and learning. Well, basically everything that gives the energy for employee to manage their tasks. So this imbalance between job demands and job resources leads to stress and exhaustion and creates damages to physical and mental health of the worker and encourages him or her to make more active use of the available resources. Imbalance between job demands and job resources can lead to stress and exhaustion and eventually to burnout. Burnout is also caused by prolonged stress, sleep deprivation, depression, anxiety, neuroticism, and other characteristics of worker.
To understand a little bit more about the burnout, maybe I can say some common misconceptions about burnout, and we can maybe say it's okay, they are true, or maybe we can say why it's false. So the first one would be burnout is just being tired. Do we agree with that?
No.
No, because as we have already spoken, to recover from tiredness, you need maybe 2 weeks to recover or more or less. But from burnout, it takes much longer time. And burnout absorbs more areas of your life than just low levels of physical energy.
While tiredness is a component of burnout, actually it encompasses much more. So it includes also emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. So it is much more severe and long-lasting condition that can be resolved by simply getting more sleep during the weekend.
I have another one. Burnout only affects people in high-stress jobs.
I wouldn't agree because, at least how I see it, it's about more how are you viewing your job. High stress job is probably higher risk, but you may feel a lot of stress even you are in a low stress job. If you have perfectionism or if you are just looking into an environment in a way that is stressful to you.
Maybe we can look at an examples. Not all firemen and not all the surgeons are burnout, which is considered high stress jobs.
Yeah.
But there are some professions that are more likely to experience burnout, for example, nurses or teachers. Why? Because their work includes not only cognitive stress, but also emotional stress, and the more components of stress the job involves, the more likely you have probability to experience burnout.
Burnout is a sign of weakness.
That's a challenging one.
I'm hearing quite similarly as just any psychological or psychiatric diagnosis as just weakness, a sign of weakness. Some people are seeing like that. So just be strong and go on. So it can be like this. I don't agree with this at all.
You've been strong for too long, maybe, and tough and motivated and...
The thing is that psychological health is also very important. We can't just look to just our physical health. So some people are just reducing that. It's important.
Okay, I have another one. Burnout can be fixed just by taking vacation.
Oh, I wish that my burnout was solved in 2 weeks. That would have been much more easier to live. But unfortunately, 2 weeks is not enough. Sometimes people take off their jobs and rest for 6 months or maybe 1 year. So which was I did. I left my job and I stayed unemployed for 6 months till I realized what has just happened with me and my work.
In the last stages, as I know, it is recommended to have sabbatical, so like undefined length of rest. And in the beginning, you are just resting physically, then you are trying to remember how to spend free time little by little, and it takes like even years.
Okay, I have another one. People experiencing burnout just need to try harder.
Try harder what? To say no, maybe? Yes, that I would agree.
I think this one is similar to you're just being weak. This
Yes.
very empathetic saying, just need to try harder.
Because if you're working and you're trying, if you're paying attention and like spending energy, probably you're doing enough based on your abilities to do. And if you don't have ability or skills for that job, you may feel more stress, but then that just trying doesn't help.
I would suggest burnout people to try harder to say no, and as well to take their free time, to draw boundaries. Because how did I got off from burnout? First step was to find an activity after work, find a commitment to be somewhere not in work. So I signed up for improvisational classes and I had to be there no matter what. And every time when I had to go to improvisational classes, I always have unfinished tasks, but I left either way.
Was it easier and easier by the process to stop work and go to improvisation classes?
Yeah, first time it was so hard, I didn't want to leave, but later and later it got easier. And actually I really enjoyed to have a life after work, eventually.
I have another statement. Burnout only happens to people who does not know how to manage their time.
I always thought that it's true, but actually I'm really good at planning time. I did a lot of things during work. I managed to solve a lot of tasks, way more than my colleagues would did at the same given time. I actually think that burnout people knows too well how to manage their time, but the key answer is what are their priorities.
And the last one would be burnout is just a phase and it will go away at its own.
It depends. Will you do something differently in that phase? If you leave your job or you change your work behavior, then it's a phase. But I don't think it goes away automatically without inner work, without noticing yourself, learning something about yourself and implementing those changes in your work behavior.
So I feel like now it's a good time to go into a question how to avoid burnout. What kind of strategies and techniques could we advise for our listeners?
First step is to rest periodically, because if you don't know how to rest, you will get burnt out eventually.
Yeah, so we should allocate some time for rest, hobbies in the week, not just work meetings in the schedule.
And as you said, important to take this time to plan this and set the boundaries where it will be my time to work, where it will be my time to rest, and prioritize self-care during the time that you are not working.
So in the first stages, it is mostly about changing attitudes and beliefs about work activities. So you may have attitude that work is the most important thing in your life and just work is enough and you may work a lot. And the attitude that you may change to is to understand that the balance between work and free time is very important, because you are the best worker if you are able to rest very well. So then you are spending time to rest and then you are working also good and like you are balancing it. And that's the change of your beliefs and attitude to activities. In the later stages, when we're having already fatigue from a lot of work, we need to track the fatigue to the level how we are feeling it. And then it is very important to have rest cycles. So there's a lot of periodical things, but like every day until you feel rested, you are not starting something new. Then every weekend is without work, like you can't work on the weekends. Then once a month, you should have at least one intense adventure. then once a year, in addition to all others, vacation. So already in this stage, when you are already fatigued, it's very difficult to manage on your own, but you still can if you are doing these steps.
Maybe I could add that sometimes it feels like all of the work might only get done by you, but it's good practice to delegate some tasks and maybe to share the work with your colleagues or team. Also, speaking about some resources, maybe talk to your friend, to your family, because even talking with them might get some stress or out of your system, some emotional support from them. And of course, if you are feeling that all the strategies doesn't work for you, it's advisable to seek professional help, such as psychologists, psychotherapists, or even psychiatrists in some cases. It's important not to feel hopeless and alone. As we talked about statistics, many people are feeling burnout, and there are people who are working specifically through that just to help you. So don't be afraid to reach for help. So now, as we discussed how to help yourself, how to avoid burnout, is there anything that we want to share before finishing this podcast?
What I would like to say to all of our listeners is that in the school, in the job, you all the time will have some people that will say that you should do more, you should do better. But I wish you to have that inner voice that would say that you should also have balance in your life, to have enough rest. Not just scrolling, not just TV, but just to have quality rest. So that's what I wish to all of you.
I agree that we often feel pressure from outside to perform better, to have these amazing careers and do our best. But at the same time, work is just a part of our lives. And if we are considering, even though it might be 8 hours a day, there is still 16 hours left, and there are weekends, there are vacations, there are family, friends, hobbies, volunteering as well, and a lot of things where you can fulfill yourself. And so I would like to take this huge focus on just fulfilling yourself at work. I want to wish for our listeners the wish that I've heard from also Laurinaitis, that you may, in the morning, you may want to go to work, and as the time it is to leave your work, you would wish to come back to home to rest and be able to separate these two lives. So I think today we had a very nice discussion about burnout, and we got to know how to define burnout, what is some signs and symptoms. Also, we discussed the causes and strategies to combat it. So thank you everyone for listening, and see you in next episodes. Goodbye, listeners.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.